3 in the morning, I'm awake without a warning. I'm wrestling with the passing of time. Try to forget it, try to get it together. She's running circles in the back of my mind. I'm hoping this is only temporary. It's scary thinking I could be going insane. Try to forget it, try to get it together. She's running circles in the back of my brain. That girl is like sunburn on my backside, sinking in the quicksand with my hands tied, shouting at the top of my lungs. But that girl, she got my tongue, so I sing it instead. I sing it, ooh, ooh. Maybe this is all inside my head. I sing it, ooh, ooh. Love will make you mad, then drop you dead.
Hey everybody, Kevin Hoy with the Grassroots Warrior Network, and we got Wes and JT back to expose the great state of Minnesota. A lot of great people in Minnesota. A lot of crazy stuff happening. Wes, did you hear about this, I guess, unofficial State of the Union address tomorrow in Washington?
Yeah, and I think we're going to have a get together at a friend of mine's house to watch it and kind of like stand and salute whenever necessary.
Well, JT, have you seen it? You know what I'm talking about?
It's a joint.
I did hear about it, yeah.
Yeah, and again, this is what I'm hearing in my back comms. It's for the first time in history, and I haven't been able to verify this, but I guess it's mandatory. Like all governors, all senators, you better be there. That's new. And what I'm hearing in the back channels is 3 states, specifically 3 states, are going to get publicly slapped, right? Humiliated in front of the press. I want to guess. I want to start a pool. I want to manifest this stuff, and it's really, really fun. So again, you go with Arizona. Arizona's on fire, right? Literally, California is literally on fire. We got Tennessee, we got Hawaii, we got like Pennsylvania, Ohio, human trafficking. I want to guess. I'm going to give you mine first, and then we got to guess before it happens. If any of this even happens, we don't know. It's tomorrow. I'm going to say Vermont, Maine. Of course, Maine already got slapped around a little bit, so maybe not Maine. But I'm going to go with Vermont, Maine, and then New Hampshire, maybe. I think it's going to be Minnesota, thanks to the Mayo Clinic. I think that's why we're being highlighted. Vermont's in the news. We're going to stay in the news. You guys are in the news, too. Okay, so 3 states. You only got to pick 3. What 3 is it going to be? Wes, we'll let you go first.
Maybe New York, California, and I'm sorry to say Minnesota, not just because I live here, but just because when you add it up, there's just so much going on here that's wrong.
You're a hub too. The transhumanistic, again,
Yeah.
the Mayo Clinic. Our friend Martin, right, JT? What's your pick, buddy? What's your 3 states? What are you going with?
So I do see Nancy Pelosi a little bit out there in the memes. So I'm gonna go with California, because that's still got to bring up all her dirty stuff yet. So I'll go with California, Minnesota, and I think New Hampshire because Bernie's been in the news. So I'm gonna go with those 3.
That's Vermont. That's what I'm saying. Nobody ever heard of Vermont.
Okay.
Remember,
Yeah.
we just talked. Now we got transgender, terrorist cults and killing border agents in our border, and Bernie's all over the news and everything else that we're seeing. They just did a skiing trip here in Vermont State. Vice President Vance came. And again, the slopes were filled with rainbow and Ukrainian flags. And again, they made I think we're in the news. And my prediction is we're going to stay in the news because I think, again, that's what we're highlighting is the bad things. So we'll see what happens. Okay, do you guys know who isn't that fun, by the way? Anybody watching? You guys feel free to leave us a comment. What do you think? You picked 3. What are going to be the top 3? And do you guys know who Ingersoll Lockwood is?
No.
You don't?
Yeah. Oh, come on, Wes. I haven't shared that with you.
No.
Well, it's funny. JT, who is, again, the man? We're going to go back a ways. Who's Ingersoll Lockwood? Give me some history.
So the man, Ingersoll Lockwood, was an author and then a statesman, I believe, as well.
Right. Wrote a pretty famous book.
Yeah, 1900, The Last President, and then what was the other one?
I don't know. The Adventures of Baron Trump.
Yeah, his Great Underground Adventures or something.
Hundreds of years ago. Okay, now flash forward to today. Again, if you go to the U.S. debt clock, which people have been kind of watching, a lot of weird things happening there. There's links. And if you click on the links, it takes you to IngersollLockwood.com. JT, fill us in. What is IngersollLockwood.com now?
I don't know, but it's got everything. It's got everything. It's been a little while since I've been on it, but it does. I've seen some different stuff on it, so it has changed some stuff. But I don't know what it is. It's an enigma to me.
It's crazy stuff is what it
Yeah,
is. It's
yeah.
all sorts of
It takes you
different
to
links.
Space Force. It takes you to NASA. It
It,
takes you to the debt clock. It takes you to quantum this and quantum that. Christian fellowship of I don't know, Catholic schools or stuff. All kinds of there it is.
Here it is, you guys. And when you go here, by the way, you don't just go to Ingersoll Lockwood. You can search it, but it's going to
Yeah.
take you through a website, a drop site that says this is secure and blah blah blah. And it's not just like getting on a regular site. But you'll see here, U.S. Space Force is hiring, and we get into all these different things. There used to be links, and you can go all over the place, different literally rabbits and stuff you could click on. But this was interesting to me. See this countdown? This has been
Yeah.
going on for
Yep,
months.
I've been seeing that for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it ends Tuesday at 9 o'clock at night. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Something's happening Tuesday night. We got a lot of things happening Tuesday, like I said. It should be interesting. Let's get into some screen shares. JT, you sent me to Free State, Minnesota, but I got to be a member. So my members request is pending.
Wes, what is it? What
Along
is
with
it?
You want to what? Free State?
Well, there was an article on there, and I think that might be the one. Gosh, I wish it would have opened it up. I don't know. There's so much stuff. It doesn't matter. You can
well,
skip
there
it.
was I think two from here, and then cows and rocks and
Rocks
cows.
and cows. Yeah.
Right. So again, my
So you
member
got to.
pending
Oh, you
there
got to
too.
be a member to see all those.
You do. So we got 5 or 6 right off the top, but that's okay
Yeah.
because if you
But
can
they're
see,
all. So I know that uh, some of it has to do with our immigration policies that our state doesn't want to uh, play ball with ICE and stuff. Uh, and then like the Title IX stuff, which I guess we're having a thing tomorrow, right, Wes?
Title IX. Yeah, there's a big rally at the state capitol in St. Paul, and uh, there's going to be the leader of the Ann Demuth, who's the leader of the Minnesota State House Majority, and she's doing an event with all of the like Republicans and the GOP House leadership, and Riley Gaines is going to be in St. Paul at that rally, and it's going to be about protecting Title IX, women's sports, and keeping dudes out of the locker rooms and off school trips with girls, and out of the hotel rooms and out of the bathrooms and the showers. So Riley Gaines is speaking at 11 a.m. at the Minnesota State Capitol, March 3rd. That's tomorrow on Monday. It's kind of a big deal, and people are coming in from all over greater Minnesota to go to St. Paul. And I just kind of pooped out energy wise. I don't think I'm going to it, but I've spent a lot of time trying to promote it with people.
I was gonna say
And
you've done about 8 tours right in a row, battle tours, front lines. You've been on the front the whole way, and I think this
yeah,
exposure that we're talking about, it's coming in every state, your state too, whoever you're
yeah,
watching. So
especially here because our Attorney General Keith Ellison has doubled down on stupid and said that he's going to challenge the Trump administration, and also our school board here in ISD 535 and other school boards throughout the state have said they're going to stay the course, and Mayor Kim Norton of Rochester is going to stay the course in terms of protecting the rights of men to go in women's bathrooms. So they're really interested in the right of men to have access to girls' sports
yeah,
teams
the
and everything
trans
that goes along with that too, trans activism and all of that stuff that we're being forced to talk about
we have
that
a new
really shouldn't
word.
be part of girls' sports at all.
We have a new word. It's called transgender. because it's a political agenda. And what we're finding is actually their children are the ones that are really being trafficked. They're being set up. So that community too, this is going out to everybody. But I think again, the Mayo Clinic,
Yeah.
again, Rochester, the city you go to die, right? And our
Right.
friend Martin, and again, the UN, you name it, you guys are a hub when it comes to the COVID lie and all these other things. So
Yeah.
JT, you gave us a couple other shares here. This again, you're just mentioning the connections
Yep.
between the CEO of Make-A-Wish, right, and US Bancorp. Is this
Yep.
wow?
So there's a new board member.
Yeah, and
Make a wish,
it's all the
say Red
top
Cross,
names.
say whatever. You know.
And they recognize that Mayo Clinic and these nonprofits that are promoting this agenda, they recognize that these gender affirming care, what they call, you got to put that in air quotes for people who are listening. Gender affirming care at the Mayo Clinic is going to be a multi-billion-dollar industry
Industry.
within 10 years if their agenda goes through. So it's a big money maker, castrating boys,
It is.
hormone blockers for males, and
Oh, not
um,
to mention the people can't reproduce, but therapeutics,
right.
big pharma for the rest of your life. Again, that's the setup. They're making a killing, aren't they?
Yeah.
Literally killing.
I warned the school board 2 weeks ago that please don't do anything else to cost us a lot of money, because as soon as one of these people experiences remorse or regret when they turn age 25 and they realize they've had a surgery that didn't cure anything, can't be reversed, they're sterilized, they can't achieve an orgasm, and you've talked a child into setting a course, a life trajectory that made sure they were the end of their evolutionary existence. They reach the end of the line. You're an evolution ender. Don't do anything that's going to cost us a lot of money, because these people are going to go back and sue the counselors and the people at the board of ed who talked them into having their fallopian tubes removed,
Mhm.
undergoing full hysterectomies, having their scrotum and penis removed, and having a double mastectomy. And one of the women who spoke to the Rochester Post Bulletin about how shocked she was, she said, "I never thought that I would hear such words used at a school board meeting." So she was shocked that I was describing what those people are actually intending to do to children. So she didn't want to hear about it,
No.
but it's just fine that they go ahead and do it. But what
Well,
you got up
this,
there on the screen, that looks like
well, I,
Drazkowski.
I was going to say too, this is an agenda, and this started a long time ago. Vermont state, my state, was actually the first one to pass gay marriage. And if you go
Oh,
back, this is congressional testimony from Kathy O'Brien. I referenced her so much lately. But Vermont Senator Patrick Leahy, you remember him from the Trump impeachment. He actually his job was to bring forth the pedophile agenda. That's what it's called. That's not me just saying it. This was an actual agenda. And this included that whole transgender movement. But this was way back. It was under Governor Dean here in Vermont. So this was a long time ago, right? When this all started. And again, it moved into our libraries. That's where we have the drag story hours. And JT's done a lot of work exposing the Mayo Clinic. And again, the millions of dollars that they're making off of, well, everything, not just the transgender and transhumanism. This is the Martine Rothblatt piece. I mean, cloning, organs, and they already have, new lungs because they knew they were going to poison our lungs. So what is this one, JT? Republican State Representative Steve
Steve
Droskowski?
Drazkowski.
Yep,
I can't read it, but it was a while ago. I saved it to send to you. I mean, I've been saving stuff for like weeks.
I know.
Um,
He's got receipts. It says affidavits, eviction
oh, this must
notices,
be.
documents.
Is this for Ilhan
It is.
Omar?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
yeah. So that's
For
another one that's in the news. You got basically everybody in the news right now. You got Ilhan Omar. You got uh, Amy Klobuchar. You got Keith Ellison. You got Tina Smith. And then there's another lady coming down here. Wes, you know who she is. Um, Tina Liebling, I think. Um, all screaming about Doge and everything, and
Oh yeah, they
oh,
don't want them to look.
yeah,
I'm going to defend these guys again. My Attorney General Charity Clark, also Soros funded. She doesn't quite out and out openly support Antifa like your attorney general does, but it's the same group, right? It's the same
Yeah.
exact stuff. And again, these guys are pushing back, double down, double hard. Of course, they don't want them to look. And I'm going to agree with them actually, because is it a good idea to let our federal government come into the states? I don't think so. At the same time, I don't think it's our federal government like you think. I think it's a military op. Let's go to
Right.
the next slide because stuff's breaking. And this is where we go to Alpha News. And again, Senator Omar, right, has
Well,
withdrawn
this
the
is a
bill.
different one.
Yeah.
This is a different. But this guy's got like three things going on that he wanted to get all this money for a foundation amidst like what, six different things, Wes, that we've got going on
Yeah.
for
Yeah. And he made a bill to provide food to quote black children, end quote. So it's a specific food bill that would benefit just one community in Minneapolis. And it's I don't have that right in front of me. I didn't print that one out
I
here.
feel like it's 15 million or something like that he wants.
Yeah,
But
15. That's
Yeah.
what it is right here. A bill to direct $15 million to the We Win Institute, right?
We win.
yeah, we win.
Yeah, they
Wow.
win. Just like
Yeah.
Feeding Our Future, they took the
Right.
money
Yeah.
and yeah, they ripped us off with Feeding Our Future, and the fraud in Minnesota is topping $600 million. And that's just what we know about in terms
Right.
of the rip-offs at Medicaid, Medicare, the Feeding Our Future, the child care scandal, the taxi driver scandal, the
Autism school scandal.
All these scandals. You want to know
yeah, the
something?
autism schools, right.
Well,
And then
thank God for you guys because the Doge is Rico. It's the
Right.
same thing.
Right.
Elon's going to get the credit,
Yep.
but the
Yep.
source is Wes and Mike Gill and Kevin Hoy and Michael Jaco and all these people that are actually in there exposing. We are Doge, I'm telling you. And it's not the federal government coming in. I think this is a military operation. And look at this guy. Look at that mug. He looks trustworthy. I hate
Hey,
to
on that
yeah,
on that note, Kevin, Wes would like to be able to get into Doge somehow, so and help out. So if you
Yeah.
got any connections,
Yeah, if I have any, I think we're doing it and it's working.
right.
Yeah.
It almost
Yeah.
feels like the news rotates around us. And I'm going to say that,
Yeah.
not even knowing your opinion. But here in Vermont State, I exposed some stuff, and it took them a little while. I got to say, I've been a couple years ahead of the media. But all
Yeah.
that stuff people were laughing at me for, it's breaking now, isn't it? So the
Yeah.
things that I have exposed personally are all coming crashing down around, and they're all connected. I think you guys can say the same thing. What do you think?
100%.
Yeah,
The stuff you
definitely.
expose
I
is
mean,
what
we
we're
were
seeing.
working on this stuff like 10 years ago before it became sexy, and we were being, there was resistance even from the Republican side. The rhinos at the time that were involved with it didn't want to hear about the fraud inside all of these organizations. But now we've got the senior nutrition program being ripped off as well by these characters.
That's
And
not
by the way, it's the same names that turn up. Like it's the same specific people that set
over
up
and
a new
over.
organization or a nonprofit or a foundation, and then they rip us off all over again. So,
Mm.
by the way, there's a whole list of Democrats who've received money, campaign donations. I guess we can't call it a kickback because that would be like a knowing complicity with fraud, but it's definitely interesting that there's a whole list of these characters who stole from the public coffers and then they ended up donating to Minnesota State Attorney General Keith Ellison, or the whole list of Minnesota Democrat candidates who received money from the very people who ripped off our state. So and now with the Amy Brock trial, the Brock trial in Minnesota is bringing the memories of Feeding Our Future. It's all coming back again to people.
Mhm.
Having Tim Walz run for vice president with Harris was a real godsend. I think Jason and you were right about that. That it
Everything we're
put an
seeing.
antenna like a big copper wire on Minnesota.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
all theater. In fact, that meeting between Trump and Lazinski there or whatever, right? Zelensky, whatever that guy. that was, did you guys, I mean, that's theater. In fact,
Yeah, it was
my
terrible.
honest, my honest thought was whoever's playing JD Vance is a horrible actor. It was like a B movie. I was laughing at it like this is crap. This is
Yeah,
all the narrative. If people can't see this, this is how, again, how do you tell the world this crazy story? This is how you tell. And look at this guy. Looks like a fine, outstanding citizen. Again, I hate to judge people like that, but again, this is the relative accused of attempting to tamper with a witness
Yeah.
and the feeding our future. It's always feeding the future. Donate your blood, help the children. The goodwill.
yeah.
There's nothing good about the goodwill anymore, man. They get all their products for free. They're ripping you off. They get free labor from the state. You know,
Yeah. We have
the
a whole host of nonprofits that make a lot of money off taxpayers, and there's a lot to discuss there. There's another one,
Right.
huh?
that's
And
another one.
Yeah.
that's really what it comes down to in the end is everything is basically funded some way through an NGO or a nonprofit through our tax money. That's basically
That's right.
the
If it's
end
a
of it.
trust or an association, you don't trust it, right? This is what we're fighting. It's
Right.
all bank fraud, tax fraud. And again, this is Doge. And here they've accused us, training labeled for state workers, labeled the Republican Party overtly white supremacist. My governor, Phil Scott, called all Vermonters, if you live in Vermont or ever have, I guess, you were all irredeemably racist.
Yeah,
Right.
This is George Soros. This is a color
we're
war.
Nazis. We're
Yeah.
Nazis.
Nazis,
Yeah.
it's another go-to. The people, it's unbelievable how, again, the satanic flip, right? They always flip it around. Here's Wes Lund's personal page. We're going to have a link, by the way. People need to go to Wes's page, especially if you live in Minnesota, because he's got all this. In Copal's a big deal,
Yeah.
isn't it, Wes?
COPAL is a very, very big deal, and there's a whole team of people looking into their tax records now and looking into the people who are leading it locally in Rochester and coordinating protests against the federal government. Um, it first popped on the radar when, well, right after President Trump was inaugurated, suddenly we started seeing protests and a resistance movement starting up in Rochester. Suddenly, there were issues again, social justice issues, which needed to be addressed by taking to the streets and resisting the federal government. And I guess one could tell this story chronologically, or one could tell this story moving moving from the present backwards. But um, I'm telling you that this is so complex that when you unpack COPAL, COPAL, and you start looking at their tax documents, some things don't make sense, and it's 1 degree of separation from George Soros and the Open Society program. So it's really interesting for anybody who wants to track the influence of George Soros through the Open Society programs in how he sets up NGOs to basically sidestep the governmental process of making law, crafting law by introducing bills to an elected body. NGOs do the bidding of the government, and basically the NGO rolls out stuff that if a company or a business were doing that, you'd get shut down by your stockholders or you wouldn't be making any
It's
money at
illegal.
all. So
Yeah.
we're all paying for social justice protests in Rochester, Minnesota. Okay, this group, all right.
You're paying for it in Afghanistan too, though.
Yes,
Right? They
yes,
need
and
extra condoms in Zimbabwe.
right. And and just the most recent George the way that George Soros and his NGOs came up with Doge and Elon Musk was that there was just a podcast Joe Rogan did 3 days ago. So it's really prescient. Again, it's like suddenly Doge is looking at all these NGOs.
I
Well,
know.
this particular NGO can I read from their own document? And this is on
Absolutely.
that site that you're showing right there. People
Yeah.
can find this. This is original source material from COPAL. This is original source material, and it calls for resistance to the federal government. And why that's a problem is that this organization was funded by a grant from the United States Department of Labor.
Yeah.
So it was initially set up with a grant from the federal government, and now this organization, COPAL, that was set up with a federal government grant initially, is now calling for resistance to ICE and Homeland Security. And this is what they said. And this is just this bottom paragraph. We will gather in proximity to where ICE has been spotted, sending a clear message. We see you. We know what you're doing. You are not welcome here. Community members will stand with signs, document the situation, and ensure visibility. Live updates of the demonstrations will be available at, and then they list their website. And this it gets worse.
We
We urge all participants to remain peaceful. Our strength is in our presence, our voices, and our collective action. We also encourage community members to document and report on any ICE activity. I'm
we
going to
got
say
the
that
same
again.
thing,
We
Russ.
also encourage community
Russ.
members to document and report on any ICE activity. If you see ICE in your neighborhood, contact COPAL's navigators at 612-249-8736 immediately. So they're calling on residents of our town to inform on the location of federal law enforcement
Right.
officers. That is in direct violation of the Department of Justice aiding and abetting illegal immigrants act. So
Yeah.
that's against law, and this is a
It's the same
problem for
thing
them.
here. I forgot the name of it, but that was one of the problems. Again, they're talking about cutting the federal money to all these states like Maine because they're going to keep boys and girls sports, right? So when they cut that money, we have the same exact program in Vermont state. I forgot literally report if you see ICE, pulling somebody over. This happened right after they shot our border patrol. We had a border patrol agent ended up pulling over somebody, happened to be an illegal. They had a big shootout, a couple people died. It turned out to be part of that. I don't know if you've heard about this, the Zizians, that cult. There's a
Oh,
transgender,
it's a transgender cult. Yeah, yeah,
a transgender terrorist cult. They've killed
yeah.
people all across the United States. They shot to death one of our border patrol agents, and then we start this report ICE program. If you look into that cult better, this isn't just regular cult. There's all college students. They're all geniuses. They all been to the same places, and they actually come out of North Carolina. They're CIA. This is MK Ultra. It's got MK Ultra written all over it. These guys are programmed government terrorists set loose, and I think that's very again documented. I have no problem saying that. Somebody should sue me, right? Here we go. The Copal Education Fund. Again, this is Wes Lund on his Facebook page. I'll have a link for you guys. You need to go look at some of this stuff. But here we go. The USAID. I'm not going to say USAID anymore because it's a scam, right? But here's
The
some of the numbers. What do you?
if you want to see the two highest paid members of their organization is Francisco Segovia, who makes $105,000 plus a year, and he has a benefits package worth another $24,000. So for people that are interested in helping the poor in a so-called nonprofit, they certainly are in a very lucrative and profitable line of work, along with Carolina Ortiz, who makes $103,000.
Mhm.
But the issues with the Copal Education Fund are a little bit exacerbated by, okay, the fact that they got this grant from the United States Department of Labor, but also are there you're showing our Mayor Norton supports
Of
this
course.
organization, and right there she is in their office. That
Yep.
office is a very expensive piece of real estate. It's
Oh yeah.
estimated to cost about the lease on that, it's about $23 a square foot. It's a it's a large office space, and they claim to have trained 400 people in a jobs program. I just want to tie in to that. It's important to have that photograph up too, but you see this gentleman again?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this same man has, well, so this is the
This guy.
lawmaker. So
Yeah.
this is a different bill. This is Senate File 1625 that he's introduced to pay for Copal. He's proposing that we spend another $7 million on COPAL this fiscal year. It's going to be a one-time grant, and that's Minnesota State Senate File 1625. So he wants to give COPAL another $6 million in
Wow.
taxpayer funds for their so-called nonprofit. By the way, that office in Rochester that you see pictured right there, that office doesn't show up on their tax documents that I've seen yet. And in addition to that, they have an office in Mankato, the address of which doesn't show up on their tax documents as yet.
I
Well, this
think
organization, the real estate that they have there is a very nice, expensive piece of real estate, as I mentioned, but the group was actually audited. They paid an outside auditor, and they found that there were issues with the cash flow and the way that expenditures were logged. So they did have a problem with the audit that they underwent
Well,
as
I
a
think a lot of these
nonprofit.
audits, I mean, I found out again, Doug Hoffer, the state auditor for the Vermont state government, right? Again, he's on all the boards and he's on all this stuff. They kind of control that stuff too. I think what you're going to find out is you have the same situation like we have here in Vermont with these EIN numbers. I think there's a lot of shell companies. They're illegal business fronts. And again, a lot of them are great companies and they do a lot of great work and they employ people and they help people, but they're still illegal shell companies. They're set up for embezzlement and money laundering. If I'm a dirty judge and Wes is a dirty senator, I just can't pay you 50 grand. We'll get caught, Wes. But
Yeah.
I can run it through your nonprofit. And that's where these giant numbers, man, it's so easy to bury. It's just another racket. And it's usually the things that are, again, supposed to help us. They seem to cost us a lot of money. I know that.
Calling
Okay.
something a nonprofit sounds really good because you say nonprofit, they must be going about the Lord's
Right.
business. They must be doing the work of Jesus amongst the people on earth, right?
The
But
Patriot Act
actually, these people,
sounds
they're
great.
making a lot of money. And where does this money go? Because they've already taken in, all this money from the United States Department of Labor.
Labor.
What do they have to show for it? Let's say they trained 400 people. We should ask for a cost benefit analysis. Where are those people working now? Who exactly did you train? What was the curriculum you used to job train them? Did you teach them how to, as Democrats want, pick fruit and clean toilets? That's what the Democrats want them to do. The
A lot of money.
Democrat ladies say that's why we need the borders to be open. Who will pick our fruit? Who will clean the toilets in the hotel rooms? But this organization has taken in a ton of money, and a lot of people are making a lot of money. And all we get are political action protests in Rochester where Mayor Norton turns up and Mayor Norton comes to a protest and she, oh, by the way, he doesn't want to answer questions there. He's
Is
right
that
at the
this one?
door, right? That's him at the door. He doesn't want to answer any questions about and other
Let's
people.
watch it. Who's him? Who are we looking at here?
This is David Perdomo. David Perdomo has a very interesting history going back to a couple different addresses in Casson, Minnesota, and then Ramsey, Minnesota. And then before that, we've got at least three different addresses for him in California.
Wow. So
So,
he's
so,
being
but
hoided.
David Perdomo doesn't turn up on any of the tax documents that I've seen, and I have their
All of them.
tax documents going back to 2019, 2020, 2020.
Of course you
So,
do. People of
yeah,
Minnesota, you owe this man a tremendous debt of gratitude for all the work and research. Again, Wes Lund, you can find his Facebook page and find all this, and you have to take it to your officials. We call this getting hoided. Let's watch and see Russ live. I haven't even watched this, Russ. I don't know what we're about to watch. Maybe.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the financing of your organization and Alianza Americas. What's the address of the webpage? But this is a nonprofit operating in Rochester, Minnesota. Is it true that the director pays himself $100,000 a year to operate? Is it true, sir, that you make $100,000? Are you the person who makes the money, sir?
Can't speak English again?
So you do work with COPAL, sir?
He speaks English.
Yeah, I know.
Do you work with COPAL, sir? Do you work with Mayor Norton? Do you work with Mayor Norton or Randy Schubring, sir?
And there's never a proper venue or place to ask these questions. They never have to respond.
So I had tried to knock on the door earlier, and COPAL wasn't here apparently. And then, of course, they came outside. They were inside the building, and I don't know if they're parked around here, but they were inside the building. When I came to talk to him, he ran inside and locked the door. But anyway, I tried to talk to the director of COPAL. I've seen him in the photographs with Mayor Norton. And this is a very powerful organization in Rochester. They're a nonprofit. And as you can see, they don't want to talk about their clubhouse today. But we'll be back to COPAL later. Oh, there's their signs. So here's COPAL at 1210 half 7th Street Northwest, COPAL. And on the second floor, they have a massive office space. So look at this is where Mayor Norton was in photographs. COPAL stretches all the way down here.
That's huge.
It must be to this other side. So this must be one whole section of the COPAL. And there's the sign that's paid for with nonprofit money. Prepared by the Immigrant Defense Network. So here you have a tax-deductible organization that you help pay for in Rochester, Minnesota, and apparently they don't want to share their tax documents and they don't want to share their levels of funding and or their mission statement. So that's kind of interesting.
That's great work, Wes. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That's the whole video, and frankly, I asked him for the mission statement of the organization before I got my camera turned on. So every nonprofit organization, by the way, that's Saturday, and they're supposed to be closed anyway. But every organization that's a nonprofit is supposed to be able to give you their donors list and their mission statement if you knock on their door and ask for it. But I did not know his name was David Perdomo at that time. I'm glad that I forgot in that video I mentioned Alianza Americas, because that is the George Soros organization, which got that organization, that group, COPAL, started initially. Now Alianza is really interesting. Give me a minute to tell you about Alianza Americas. It's based out of Chicago. I'll just make a quick pitch,
Sure.
and then if you want to know more, just try to, ask me if you want to know more. It's based out of Chicago. George Soros gives them a huge infusion of cash. Over a period of years, he invests millions and millions of dollars into Alianza Americas. Alianza Americas gives grants to smaller organizations all over the United States of America. So I looked into Alianza Americas, and I read their mission statement, and I got their tax documents also. And they have a really fascinating mission statement. And they're on 3030 West Surmass Road in Chicago, Illinois, 60623. And there's Mirtha Colon is the leader of that group. So I have all of their tax documents too. And then what I found was that this group wants, basically what Alianza Americas wants to do is they say that because of climate change, all of these people in Central and South America need to come into North America. So they're about climate change migration, right? And also they don't believe in borders. So they want to infuse just millions and millions of people. And you saw Hillary Clinton doing this, and the Obamas doing this, and then of course the Biden administration doing this. But their mission statement is all about helping everyone from the Caribbean come to North America, and everyone from Central America, and everyone from South America. They've got to come to North America because of climate change. So it's fascinating. But they give out millions of dollars to other groups. So COPAL got over $900,000 from Alianza Americas, and then there's another 300,000 there and another 500,000 to another group. But that is money directly from George Soros. That is one of his open society for you, right? We couldn't take like 4 million of us and go down and live in Chile, you
No.
know.
Well, and it's the same. I mean, people, that's another divider for a lot of people. And if you're an immigrant right now, legal or illegal, chances are you're having a tough time too.
Yeah.
Again, here in, Paulet, Vermont, again, we've got a giant farm. So what these farms do is they bring in these immigrant seasonal workers. They're illegal immigrants.
H-1B visas, maybe.
They bring in
H-1B.
all the whole family. They come in, right? And again, in our case, we have immigrant abuses now. There was an argument over some cocaine. I had a farmer beat the hell out of one of the immigrants, and then their 15-year-old nephew or whatever tried to like, where's the child labor laws? And now they bring the whole
So
family, right?
So
But
that
this,
kind of started it in Rochester because there were two guys, and the stories changed a lot. But what blew up is that there were restaurant workers who allegedly got in trouble with ICE and Homeland Security, and allegedly two guys were detained. Then the story changed to just one, and it's been a mess. But the ICE activity became an excuse for people to step up and start protesting. Now, the word immigrant is a very special word. I mean, I've been to Ellis Island probably 15 times. I've been to the Statue of Liberty a whole bunch of times. I can't remember how many times I've been out there. When you were a real immigrant, and now if you're going to be a real immigrant, but back in the day, the transit company would check you out before you got on the steamliner. You weren't allowed to buy a ticket if there was a chance of you being rejected at the other side, because the liner company had to pay for your repatriation to your home country.
Mhm.
So they made sure that everybody who bought a ticket and got on a liner to come to Ellis Island was going to have a good chance of passing through immigration control at Ellis Island and then leaving Ellis Island to go to the mainland in New Jersey or in New York City.
Well,
That was
what about all
so
the
now
good people that want to come here and they're doing it the right way? And it takes
the
years. They're
right way.
standing in line. What about those people? They're the ones really getting it.
Right.
And even the people
That's
that
right.
get here, it is about our resources and our jobs and our housing and all these other things, but it's also about their children. We need to pay
Right.
attention to that stuff because
That's
the
right.
immigrants are being abused too. It's just like,
So the
go ahead.
leftists the leftists are trying to change the meaning of the word immigrant. They're also using migrant more
Yeah.
frequently because they want to say people just move around and they don't believe in borders. It's a natural thing for human beings. That's in their documents too, by the way. All
Yeah.
Alianza Americas talks about the free movement of peoples. Well, by the way, if you're in the Dominican Republic sharing the island of Hispaniola with Haiti, there is no crossing that border from Hispaniola on the east to the west or the west to the east. There is no migratory pattern from Haiti into the Dominican Republic. They would never allow it. So, by the
No,
way, if you're in Mexico, they don't allow people to just walk in from Guatemala unless they're already going to go in transit on their way to the north, El Norte. If they're
yeah.
going to keep moving, they might allow them to cross through Mexico or even facilitate their movement through Mexico into North America. Because now we have some really strange groups in the United States of
Okay.
America that are calling for the reestablishment of Greater Mexico or the Mexicali movement
Sharia
to
law.
come into California where they're going to reclaim old Mexico. And hey, we'll see who conquers.
Now we're going to add I think Canada is going to become our new state. And by the way, that's not just a 51st state. That's Norman Travesty. That's the Quo Warranto. That's where I'm somehow involved with the middle of that. Canada was never a country. That's what that's about. Again, I don't know
Right.
how they're going to, feed it
Well,
the public
we
narrative, but that's what we're watching.
we pay for Canada's, so
Yeah, we do.
that's and also we have a border control problem in Minnesota with Canada. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a
us
bust
too.
recently where they're just pallets of phony Chinese engines These little,
Yeah.
like all kinds of Chinese mock stuff makes it across Canada somehow from their shipping docks and gets
Yeah, I
into the
wonder
United
how.
States through Minnesota. Yeah, I
We
mean,
had
why?
19,000 illegal crossings on the northern border of Vermont, and we're about that big, right? We're a little tight,
Right.
19,000. And it's
Yeah.
not just people, again, it's drugs and children and money and weapons and all sorts of stuff. It seems like they're using, again, the Native American people, the indigenous people, though, just like they're using the transgender community, Antifa, BLM, a lot of great people again support BLM.
Yeah.
Again, they think minorities are getting an unfair shake. They're probably right. So they go up and they stand up. But then again, your protest got hijacked just like our protest. And it seems
Mhm.
like again now we got a transgender terrorist cult. Like what? And then the same with the migrants. It seems like they're almost being set up, used as more division, right? And I don't want to fall
Yeah.
for it anymore.
Well, when you've got a bunch of Chinese nationals crossing the Darien Gap to get into North America, you've got a real problem with migration, with this migration of people. How did they get into South America, into Central America? Some of the people transited, some of the Africans present the story that they made it to Mexico because they were brought into Brazil and then they were shown how to get through South and Central America. They basically transported these people overland. This international trafficking of people, of human beings, is a travesty and it just needs to stop. And
Well,
you can enter the United States legally, but there's a process for doing that. Right there is some interesting info too. So, um,
so big, isn't it? It's all
yeah,
encompassing. And you just touched on something because if people have been watching right now, even mainstream media, from Alley Carter and Hollywood and the Getty Museum and the tunnels and Disney and the warrants for Hollywood, and you guys know where this rabbit hole goes. Right now, we're
uh-huh.
starting to look at CPS finally. Hey, there's a good idea. I think this is a great unifier, and I think that's what I'm watching. We're watching judges now, we're watching commissioners, and they're all tied in with child trafficking. CPS and your Congress, I don't care what state you're in, they're involved. And I think that's the real big story that's breaking. And then all this other stuff, I want to say it's semi distraction because they don't want us looking at that one, right? But I think this is the fall of our American government, is what I think. I think it's all imploding. House is falling. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a lot of
I concur.
revenue. You're talking about a lot of money moving around, and there's very little accountability. And it's strange that the United States Department of Labor would spend so much money on a group that turns around to protest the United States Department of Homeland Security,
Yeah.
and which is not a group I was in favor of back, when we got lied into a bunch of wars to create all these defense contractors and bullshit like that. But here we are at a point where
Of
this money's being spent to divide our culture and to play racial demographic politics and to whip people up into protesting against each other. And it's a very dangerous thing to be spending
destruction
all of
of our
this
country.
money. George Soros should be arrested at this point, and his son as
Should
well.
be. I
They
don't think
shouldn't be
he's
spending all this money
even
in our
here.
communities for protests. And frankly, I mean, when you've got an organization telling people straight up to resist ICE and report on the movements of
No,
ICE, you see
crazy.
federal law enforcement officers, you're supposed to call their number at 612-249-8736. I want to know who's answering that phone. This sounds a lot like Tim Walz's daughter calling in the movements of the military in Minnesota during the fall of Minneapolis.
Yeah, yeah. We have again, it's government against government. We've said that for a long time too. I think it's us against them, the people, if we can stop our shit, again, all that division, to realize we have a common enemy. And there's a couple different levels of there's regular greed and human corruption. And then we got this true underlying evil. And I think that's finally coming to the surface where people can see it. JT, you've been pretty quiet during all this. What do you think's going on, man?
Yeah, I think I think this, like you said, Doge is essentially like Rico, and they have all this information, I believe, already, and they're just slowly making it digestible
Yeah.
for the last ones, for the last people.
Well, and this is where we were so important because like I can't imagine being a David Icke or a Dolores Cannon or, being at this for 50 or 60. How did they even survive that? I know last decade was pretty rough for me. I feel like, what the hell's wrong with people? I want to
Right.
shake them, right?
Yeah.
Like, come on, like what? But I think, again, that news that we're watching right now is not for us, is what I tell people. A lot of the stuff I think is over. We reported that again years ago when it actually happened. But how do you tell the world this crazy story? How?
Well,
This is how, I think.
can I add another level to how
Sure.
crazy this is how we do it because we bypass the legacy media, which is never going to touch a story like this. But
We're part of it.
at a time when we've got another scandal in Minnesota with the New Way, and New Ways is under the DHS. They overbilled for drug treatment facilities or alcohol treatment facilities in Minnesota, sometimes charging as much as, say, $30,000 a month. I heard from one of the employees of New Way,
Yeah.
and so there's a number of drug treatment facilities in Rochester that have closed down. So when you talk about people's lives are impacted by the lack of what's going to happen to all those people who are trying to kick a habit or get a monkey off their back, and it turns out
Oh,
that the program is canceled because the
corruption.
the government's getting ripped off. Well, I want to tie back, and the last thing I guess I have to say,
See,
and
I,
this is
I don't
on my
know if
Facebook wall, this
they're going to
audit.
cancel everything. I think they're canceling the corruption. I think welfare and all
Oh
these
yeah,
systems that we're taking are going to take a huge hit. But I do think
but we'll
the
bounce
money
back. Yeah,
is still going to be there for
yeah.
people. I don't see it completely ending. I just see the fat. We're going to trim the fat.
Yeah,
It's
no,
the
it's a
government.
good thing. Yeah, I mean, finding the corruption and the waste is a good thing because they were overbilling hours. So they were charging for client services way too much. So they were the people that were in charge were sucking the money faster
Well, they'll
than it
put
should
people
by.
on. These are the stories that are breaking. They'll put, there's
Yeah,
hundreds of people that went through radiation, chemotherapy treatment, and they weren't even sick. We're finding that shit out now. And again, the human trafficking thing. Your child gets sick, so you take him to the doctor. You just take him in for a checkup, right? Or again, he's sick, and they say, well, you waited too long, or we don't like the way you're treating. Is he vaccinated? No, he is now because they're going to vaccinate the hell out of him, and then they're going to take your kids. They're going to use the medical system and the courts, or they bring in the drugs. That's your law enforcement when they're not molesting our children. They're bringing in and distributing the drugs because they need mom and dad high to steal our children, right? And again,
right.
they get you high and they use the courts, or they just make up a bunch of crap. They're going to incarcerate you for no reason, especially if you're a single mom, got a bunch of kids, you ain't got no family. You're probably going to get set up and they're going to take your kids. Do you see the
They got to get
connection
rid
now?
of the dads. Got to
It's
get the
this,
dads
they
out of
gotta,
there.
again, the courts are so, the prosecutors, the judges, and the lawyers. This is, of course, you need law enforcement. Of course, you need the drug dealers. Of course, it's all tied together, but it's, again, judicial is such a huge piece of this. And then the media. They own the media too, so they control the narrative. If they got to investigate themselves, right? Their internal affairs for themselves, and if it gets really out of hand, they have their brother do it, right? And then their best friend and college roommate writes a big article in the newspaper. They give themselves an award, and we move on. This is the typical thing, and it's the same people, like you were saying, in Minnesota and Vermont and New Mexico and whatever state you're watching it. It's the same people over and over and over. When are you going to do something about it? I don't expect, I'm hoping Donald Trump, the military, the good guys, this Galactic Empire Alliance or whatever, I hope they're coming, but I'm not waiting. Wes is not waiting. Even JT, I see him yelling at Mayo Norton across the street now. That's what it takes is this grassroots movement, I think. Participation. People got to get involved. I think that's really like if you guys again, we're happy Elon's looking. They don't want Elon to look. Go figure, right? Then we're happy with a lot of the things that Trump are doing. I'm not so happy with some of the things Trumps are doing too. I don't trust any of these guys, man. We got to do this ourselves, I think. Don't you? I mean, isn't that?
I
And I hope
I
everything
do.
we do is for nothing, Wes. I hope you
I
just
do. I
wasted
do.
a decade of your life.
Yep.
Me too.
No,
Right?
I'm happy too that there's a lot of other people stepping up, and one of them found and they sent me this, and but thanks to everybody who sends stuff, because then I can post it, makes me look smart. But this was
Exactly.
sent to me by another guy, and I always keep my sources secret, but it's that this is on ProPublica, so anybody can find this document by searching on ProPublica for this organization, uh, COPAL, ProPublica COPAL independent audit. Basically, 5 words will show you Soros Open Society Project, this nonprofit, conducted an independent audit of its finances. And regarding this COPAL organization, there were significant deficiencies, significant problems in 2023. So this isn't ancient history. This organization had revenues in that year of $2.5 million. They had assets of $688,000, and they spent in expenses $2,700,000. And this is on my website too. It's the ProPublica documents that you can see, and there's a link right there if you want to follow the link, because this is it. The audit identified a deficiency in internal financial or governance controls that could limit the organization's ability to track and report financial data accurately, reliably. The deficiency is less severe than a material weakness, but warrants attention from management. So when you're taking in $2.5 million or 2 million, 2.7 million, and you're spending, or no, you're taking in 2.5 and you're spending 2.7, you know, and this is a lot of money that we're talking about, and you're saying that you're providing what? Like, what are you doing actually
For that
for
money.
people, for human beings? Well, some people are making a lot of money paying themselves a lot of money. They're paying their own organization. And this guy Perdomo, I didn't know his name, but a couple other people have taken his name, and they want to know, well, who is he working for? Because he's not listed as an employee. And by the way, there's the officers, the people that are administering these programs and you can find it under usaspending.org. You can find all the COPAL documents here online. The officers of the program aren't listed in those documents. So they're taking in all this money, and you don't see them doing anything with it really, except real estate deals.
Patting their
So
nest egg.
somebody looked into the real estate, and in Minneapolis. So we had a meeting at the congressman's office on Monday, Congressman Brad Finstad's office Tuesday, and we conveyed, and another person had done some research into real estate transactions in Minneapolis and found something really interesting that I can't talk about because I don't have the original source material on it yet. But there's some real estate deals in Minneapolis related to some nonprofits. That's all I can say
I
right
think
now.
there's a lot more coming. And, you know, Wes ran for office and he didn't win because he got cheated. He's doing the job anyway. I want people to note that. And everybody watching, I get asked all the time, well, what do we do? What can I do? You guys have all been abused, you know, and spit out by the system. You probably got more than enough of your own evidence. But if you live in Minnesota, there's a couple people, it's a big state, big population. Go to Wes's site. You can get all the ammunition. He has a whole bunch of ammo laid out for you guys to pick up and take it to your officials like your constitution tells you. You don't have to be crazy. You saw Wes at the interview with the door. That was really smooth. It was simple. You were polite and you saw the reaction. They run like the dogs that they are with their tail between their legs. And if everybody did that, if the next meeting I go to, they give you 2 minutes, if you're lucky, right? 5 minutes, but it's not interrupted like it's my own. It shuts you down. But imagine as soon as they throw Kevin out the door, a JT gets up and goes, "Hey, I'm interested in that stuff. How about?" And then you get your 2 minutes, and then the next guy gets their 2 minutes. And imagine it only take 6 or 8 Kevin Hoyts at your next little local. It would make a mess, man. It might even get news attention. If you can get 10 people, probably get news attention because I don't know about your meetings. Nobody goes to our meetings. Nobody is. Again, these guys just have free reign. They do whatever they want. That's already a, they just have to do the meeting to tell people what they're doing. And they tell you. They have multi-gazillion dollar budgets for little tiny towns, and they're already spending into 2027, right? They're way ahead. I was just at a select board meeting in little tiny Wells, Vermont. Their school, right? They have 80 students. They have a $6 million budget. I'm like, how does anybody even, how do you put that forward? And I think, again, CPS, education, all these, again, shell companies and illegal things, I think that's what we're witnessing because of you, Wes, and JT, you too, man. You've come alive, and I appreciate both you guys. This was awesome. I That's about an hour, but do we have any closing words? What do you want to tell the people? Get involved is my only advice. Participation is mandatory at this part, or you're part of the problem. Go ahead, Wes. What do you got for advice?
Okay, advice would be don't expect that just because President Trump is in office, now you can sit back and go back to sleep and everything's taken care of. Trump needs us to be the wind in his sails, boots on the ground. We need to step it up and use these 3.5 years. We just got 4 bonus months of President Trump or whatever, 3 bonus months after he got elected. It was like he wasn't even president yet and everything started to get better. Now we need to push back harder and get involved and stop thinking that the white hats are going to come over the hill and save your ass. Get up and do something in your community. Sign up to speak at the school board, become the school board. There you go. Sign up to speak at the city council meeting, become the city council. Don't go just, go once a month, bring some friends. And like you say, sign up for your 2 minutes and then get the next guy up there to sign up for their 2 minutes. Just keep going because that's all we got. They don't want us to show up at the county commissioners meetings. They don't want to see our faces there. And they
Yeah.
want you to fill out some online survey about your gender preferences and how you will get your rocks off. Don't participate in their online bullshit. Show up face to face and go ahead and make some. Oh, by the way, I have a great contact in City Hall who said they have a backlog of data practices requests right now. Keep it coming. They've got like 3 dozen data practices requests. I requested the data on the police activity at the high school where David Perdomo's group or COPAL was running a protest at the local high school. And I got the data. They didn't expect somebody to show up and ask for David's. I have David's. He wrote out these applications for to have protests in downtown Rochester, and Mayor Norton helped with those. So anyway,
Yeah. Well,
show
you're
up. Like I
looking. They
like,
count on us not looking. That's another thing. It's
yeah.
actually really easy. I used to think they were playing dumb. I don't think they're playing anymore. They're so blatant and it's so obvious if you look, but they count on us not looking. JT, words of advice for the audience.
Yeah, that's that's true what Wes says. Um, and that happened with us. We just started talking. People just started showing up to city council meetings, and yeah, nobody goes to city council meetings. And then all of a sudden, you got people up there yelling about, COVID and elections and stuff. And back then, the Post Bulletin did a hit piece on me when I did that.
Yeah.
But now it's all coming home to roost, you know.
Well, it's always
So
it's not easy to be a patriot, especially when it's not popular, but I think these things are finally breaking. I think we're about to get really busy. All the viewers too. Everybody that's in that advanced class, a lot of people are just waking up. They're going to be scared and confused and they're going to remember, right? All these crazy topics that we've been talking about for years. Our job was to brace them for impact. And I think everybody knows, even if you disagree with it and you still think we're completely nuts, when this finally comes through now, you're not going to be blindsided. It's not going to be a hard right to the face, right? You're going to at least, and I think that was our mission. And I think we're still in that exposure mode. I can't wait to get to the solutions mode though, because we got those things too. I've seen some incredible things once all this breaks. So let that system go is my advice closing
Yeah.
to everybody. Let it go. We don't need it. That whole system, just let it crash. We're going to do something a whole lot better, hopefully a whole lot more constitutional. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your time and all this effort and work and time that you've put in over the years. Salute, Grassroots Warriors. Everybody who watched the show, please click the rumble button. Talk about that stuff. That's another powerful weapon. Our voice. Tell people, warn people. Go hug your mother. See you guys.